welcome everyone. This is the meeting of the Election Commission, and it is being called pursuant to Michigan statute found in MCL 168.952, which governs elections in the state of Michigan. Today is April 13th, and the time is 2:30. We're meeting in the Commissioners' Chambers in the Bay County building, and this meeting follows the Open Meetings Act. This meeting is being recorded. Friendly reminder, I just did it myself, please silence all your cell phones. The members of the Bay County Election Commission, as defined by statute, are as follows. To my left, far left, is County Clerk Kathleen Zanotti, and she serves as the Secretary of the Commission. To my near left is County Treasurer Weston Prince, and he serves as a member of the Commission. And I'm Jan Miner, I'm a probate judge, and I serve as the Chair. As defined by statute, the purpose of today's meeting is to determine whether each reason for the recall stated in the petition is factual and of sufficient clarity to enable the officer whose recall is sought and the electors to identify the course of conduct that is the basis for the recall. The Recall Commission does not determine the truth of the allegations. Allegations of fact may be true or false, and the Commission does not have the structure or the resources or procedural authority to investigate, to swear witnesses, or to subpoena to determine if allegations are true or not. However, the language should at least be grounded in reality to the extent that it has the potential to be true. The Recall Commission will consider only whether the assertions in the petition are stated clearly and factually. Any allegation of fact may be true or false, and the test employed by this commission will be to find out whether the allegations state facts and are clear, so that the responding official may defend. Please note, if any reason for the recall is not factual or of sufficient clarity, the entire recall petition shall be rejected. In addition, each reason for the recall shall be based upon the officer's conduct during his or her current term in office. Matters of opinion are not factual. If the Commission approves the recall language, a copy of the approved language will be forwarded to the filing official, who will later then receive the signed recall petitions, the sheets. We will make our determination at the end of this meeting by vote. Our ruling on the clarity and factual nature of the recall language may be appealed by the officer whose recall is sought, or by the sponsor of the recall petition to the circuit court in this county, and it must be filed within 10 days after our determination, which will be 10 days from today. As previously stated, these proceedings are being recorded. Therefore, I ask that everyone treat each other with respect and courtesy. If there are unnecessary comments while someone is speaking, it could result in a distorted record. If an orderly meeting cannot be maintained, I reserve the right to adjourn the hearing to our court facility. So again, please silence your cell phones. So here's the procedure that we are going to follow. First, we will hear from the sponsor of the petition and then the officer. The sponsor of the petition will have roughly 10 minutes and the officer will have 10 minutes. I will then open the meeting for public comment, including comments from our commissioners, if they so desire. If you wish to speak to the clarity and factual nature of the petition, you may, and we ask that you limit your time to roughly 3 minutes. I don't know if I've ever been held to 3 minutes, but 3 minutes. What I'm going to do is I'll ask you to come to the podium, I'll ask you to identify yourself and your address before speaking. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read the proposed language into the record. We, the undersigned, registered and qualified voters of the Township of Capallen in the County of Bay and the State of Michigan, petition to the calling of the election to recall Brad Eddy from the office of Supervisor for the following reasons. During a public meeting of the Capallen Township Board held on February 23rd of 2026, the supervisor stated on record that, quote, somebody should let their balls out of the treasurer's purse, end quote, in reference to fellow board members. This petition was, for the recount was, the petitioner is Rebecca Leland. Okay. So does the sponsor, is Ms. Leland here? Oh, Ms. Leland, hi. Do you wish to address the commission?
Yeah.
Come on up. And just state your name and address. There you go.
Sorry, I'm a little short. Rebecca Leland, 1736 East Beaver Road.
And it's Rebecca, R-E-B-E-K-A-H.
Yes.
Okay, correct. Thank you. Ms. Leland, go ahead.
First of all, I have a video that I'd like to show you,
Okay.
if it's possible.
All right, well, we'll try our best. Go ahead. We've been listening to a lot of,
It's kind of really, really low, so I don't know if you have something that you can hear it with, or...
I don't know if you can put it to the microphone.
So, I'm simply saying what happens
board meeting, and Treasurer DeShano, trustees Whalen and Campbell were there, and Clerk Wally. And
I'm sorry, who's the last person?
Clerk Wally, Brian Wally.
Oh, yes, okay.
Yeah, and he, Mr. Remy wanted to approve himself to the planning commission.
Approve Mr. Eddy to the planning.
He wanted to appoint himself to the
Okay,
planning
all right,
commission.
sorry, okay.
Yeah, so this was ever really important.
Okay, and the discussion was the appointments on the planning commission.
Yeah.
All right. I think, is there anything else you would like to talk about in regards to your petition?
Well, I wrote a statement, if you don't mind me
No,
reading it.
no, not at all, please go
Okay.
ahead.
Let me take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Rebecca Whelan, and I'm Deputy Treasurer and Office Secretary of Collin Township. I'm also a longtime resident and a very concerned one. The words spoken by Supervisor Eddy on February 23rd, 2026, during the township meeting was derogatory, hateful, and borderline sexual harassment, not only to his treasurer, but also to his clerk and trustees. By making the statement, sooner or later, somebody should let their balls out of the treasurer's purse, made me feel like I was in a high school boys' locker room, rather than a township boardroom for a Supervisor Eddy may say that the statement was a joke taken out of context, but by referring to fellow board members' genitalia, this very much makes it a sexual statement. The statement was also a hateful attack on Treasurer DeShano. By stating she has the balls of the other three gentlemen on the board, makes it seem like that's the only way a very hard-class working woman can get anywhere in life. Not only did he insult Treasurer DeShano, but he also insulted other working-class women by making the statement. I'm sure he would not like it one bit if something like that was made towards his daughter, wife, mother, or sister while they were in her place of employment. Some may think that he's the only one professional member of the board, but there's nothing professional about his comment or the way he acted during the time of public comment. It was downright embarrassing. Supervisor Eddy may state that he was making a statement as a citizen of Collin during the public comment session. Supervisor Eddy never left his chair and in fact made a public comment concerning his position as township treasurer by making statements such as, the powers that have been stripped from me, and this may as well be an empty chair. He never attempted to get up to walk to the microphone. I want to thank the commission for taking time in considering this matter. The future of Collin is at stake if leadership is like this is allowed to continue.
Hold on, did any of this heard? Mr. Eddy is the township supervisor, the elected supervisor.
Correct.
Did you say in there he was the treasurer?
No, I Treasurer DeShano.
Oh, treasurer to say, okay, I'm so sorry. Okay, great, okay. Questions?
Is this meeting public comment or during the agenda, like an agenda?
It was made during public comment.
Okay, I've already asked on the side for a while. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is Supervisor Eddy here?
Yep.
Mr. Eddy, come
Thank you, guys.
on. Hi. Okay, thank you. Would you just state your name and your address for me? Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Brad Eddy, and I serve as the supervisor of Collin Township. I want to begin by stating clearly I respect the recall process. I respect the right of every citizen to use it. Every citizen also has constitutional rights to petition their government for redress of grievances. This is not about avoiding accountability. However, what is before this body is not whether someone agrees with what I said. The issue before is whether the recall language meets the legal standard under Michigan law. Under MCL 168.952, recall language must be factual and of sufficient clarity. That means the language must accurately reflect what occurred without omission or distortion of key facts. If the context is removed or a statement is presented in a misleading way, then the standard is not met. Now I want to turn to the official record. The township minutes from February 23rd, 2026, on the last page, I folded over the top, shows that I clearly spoke during the public comment portion of the meeting. Public comment is a designated time where individuals speak as private citizens, not in their official capacity. That distinction is critical. At this time, I will reference the minutes that reflect that I spoke during public comment on the last page. Public comment.
Traditionally, I'm tragically interrupt here. I'm sorry, get your folded over page, where's the public comment? Gotcha. All right, okay, great, all right, thank you.
The minutes reflect that I spoke during public comment along with other individuals, which were other board members, and they all were in their chairs. This is not disputed as part of the township official record. Now I will read the relevant portion of the transcript so that the full context is on the record. That's Exhibit B. Brad Eddy, 1890 South Huron Road. But to do with the Planning Commission appointment, the Planning Commission appointment is something that is privileged to the supervisor to recommend. I did not make any recommendation for Brian Whalen for that position. I did not make that recommendation I made that recommendation for me to go to that position. So the diverting of it made no sense. The Planning Commission needs another member. Matt Woods made that clear. It needs another member. So just making sure everybody knows the powers that have been stripped from me to bring up ethical issues within this township is wrong. And making sure everybody knows the truth will be told. Truth is being told. But there is nothing I've done wrong. When it comes to legal has skyrocketed since the transparency resolution came into play. But I'm just making sure that everybody knows, why would you keep a supervisor from the Planning Commission? It's about control. That's what it's about. And sooner or later, somebody should let their balls out of the trailers first. So I'm sick of seeing what happens in this township on a daily basis. The door gets shut in her office and people go in there and they're quiet as can be. You know, just don't let the supervisor know anything. This may as well be an empty chair. But if you can tell me anything I've done wrong, I'm open ears, other than bringing out what I don't think ethically is correct, then go ahead. What this shows clearly is that my remarks were made during public comment as a private citizen, and were a broader discussion regarding township governance, and transparency. This was not an official action. It was not a directive. It was not a policy decision. It was speech. Now I want to compare that to the recall language. The recall petition isolates a portion of the statement, removes it from its context, and presents it in a way that creates misleading impression. Critically, I do not state that the remarks were made during public comment. That omission matters. Because without that context, the meaning of the statement is altered. That is not clarity, that is omission. And omissions of context result in a statement that is not factually complete. Under Michigan law, that is insufficient. I also want to briefly address the issue of consistency and credibility. The same or nearly identical language appears in three places. First, the recall petition filed on April 1st, 2026. Second, an anonymous complaint submitted under the name concerned resident. And third, statements made on social media under the same name, under the name Justice for All, which is not a verified individual. Those are attached as Exhibit C. When the same language appears across a recall petition, an anonymous complaint, and an anonymous or synonymous social media source, it raised legitimate concerns about coordination and reliability. At a minimum, it calls into question whether these are independent sources or part of a single narrative being repeated. Again, I want to be very clear, I'm not challenging the right of anyone to file a complaint or pursue a recall. Those are fundamental rights, but those rights must be exercised based on accurate, complete, and truthful information. A recall based on protected speech is one issue. A recall based on misrepresentation of that speech is another. The Constitution protects speech on matters of public concern. It protects speech that is critical of government. It even protects speech that some may find offensive. But that protection does not disappear simply because someone disagrees with what I said. So again, the question before this body is not whether the statement should have been made. The question is whether the recall language accurately and clearly describes what actually happened. It does not. It omits the fact that the statement occurred during public comment. It removes the surrounding context, and it presents a partial statement in a way that changes meaning. That fails the standard for clarity under Michigan law. Before I close, I want to briefly provide context for why this matters. Since the November 5th, 2024 election, there have been multiple actions taken by resolution that have impacted the statutory duties of both the supervisor and the clerk office under Michigan law. These actions have effectively limited the ability of those offices to carry out their responsibilities as defined under Michigan compiled laws. During that same period, there's been significant turnover within the township with numerous individuals resigning, leaving, or being terminated. A total of 24 in Colorado. So I am now experiencing firsthand the environment that has developed within the township, and it raises concerns about governance, transparency, and the ability of elected officials to perform their duties. I say this not to expand the scope of this hearing, but to underscore that my comments during public comment were part of a broader concern regarding township operations. The context further demonstrates while isolating a single statement and removing it from large discussion is misleading. I will close with this. I respect this process. I respect the role of this body. I respect the rights of every citizen involved, but I also expect that the law will be applied fairly and correctly. This recall language is not factually complete. It is not clear. It is based on misrepresentation of protected speech. For those reasons, I respectfully request that the recall language be rejected.
One minute, question. Ms. Sanani?
Just some things that you've mentioned, Brad, is that this has to be accurate, complete, and truthful. You know, it's stated, Judge Minor does believe that that actually isn't part of what we are approving here. It has to be factual in nature and clear enough for someone that if you are knocking on your neighbor's doorstep with this petition, they can read and understand the reason why you believe an officer should be recalled. And you know, I've reviewed a lot of past appeals and recalls throughout the state of Michigan, and the way that this process is written, to me, you could easily recall someone. It is a burden on, you know, the people, the officers, the petitioners, and ourselves when we have to do this. Many reasons, you know, there's not, I guess, a truth test to these recalls.
It's the clarity.
Well, and you know, the way that the law is written is there should not be an undue burden upon the petitioner. It's not supposed to be written unnecessary for an attorney to write it, or you know, the average person should be able to submit this language. It should be simple language that someone can understand. Then the voters can make a decision whether they think it's a good reason or not. And even, you know, the space on the recall petition itself is not very big. I think for the reason that they expect the average citizen to list a simple reason, one or a few, and then let the voters decide based on that.
I do have a question, and I saw this, you've been getting to know people in Coquitlam these last couple of weeks. And this is a question I've never served on a township board, so I'm sort of looking for some guidance here. But when we have, I've served on other boards, but I don't know or understand, and I saw this before, is that when you have officers, so we have I know Pastor Campbell is here, we had Mr. Whalen, you know, we had those other petitions previously, and I saw these, I've been reading the minutes and things. I don't know, how do you take off one hat and put on another hat? You know, so aren't people always a trustee? You know what I mean? I don't, or is there provisions that allow you to say, hey, right now I'm not going to be a trustee, I'm just going to be a person in the community and I can now make a public comment? How does that work? I just don't know. Are you always a supervisor? It's kind of like, even when I'm out, you know, for example, when I'm out in my yard gardening, I'm always a judge, so then I can't yell obscenities to the motorcycles, you know, going 90 down my road. You know, I'm always at that standard, even though I'm out gardening, looking lonely. You know, so how does that work when, and I saw that before with other public comments, who are you addressing if all of your trustees are in line to speak at a public comment? Who are they talking to?
Well,
How does that work?
Your Honor, what happened in the past that I've watched for 10 years, 11 years of going to township meetings in Taunton, I've watched almost every trustee, once they state their name and address, they become a citizen. It's free speech at that point.
During the meeting?
At the public comment portion
Oh.
of the meeting.
Okay.
Your Honor, that's,
So then who are they addressing? What happens if all 5 of you are up in line to be public comment? Who are they talking to?
many of us in those minutes were, Brian Whalen spoke after me, Charles
Right.
Campbell spoke.
Mr.
We are
Whalen?
all public citizens in that public comment, and that is of record. Of record. We were taking out of that position for that time of the public comment.
All
I
right.
was not the supervisor when I said that stuff.
Yeah, so how does that happen? What, is that part of the township? Is that part, I don't know if it's part of the law, that part that you suddenly just are no longer that person?
It would be the same as this body that conducts here. Any of those people could come up here and
Okay.
state their names
Okay.
as public comment and do the same.
Okay.
It's our constitutional right is what it is.
Well, yeah, I understand that, but it would be interesting if like all 8 of you were in line and there was somebody to talk to. Like, who would you address? I mean, you're addressing
never-
the township board, but if y'all are in line to address the township board, who are you talking to? It's weird, I don't know, I just think it's interesting.
I mean, I can say that Trustee Campbell has probably exercised this more than any
You know,
trustee.
And that's what kind of triggered that, because I saw that last
Yeah.
time, I was like, how are they then speaking at public comment? I just didn't know, so I
He
just
waits-
found it
He
interesting.
waits till that portion often
Okay.
and respectfully addresses what needs to be addressed at that time.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then you can then take off your hats and then address and not be that person, not be that elected official
That is
anymore?
correct.
Okay, all right, interesting. Okay, thank you. I didn't know. I wondered about that from last time. Any other questions for Mr. Supervisor Eddy?
When
Okay.
it comes to the clarity, Katie, I believe that when I read it, when I read that transcript, it becomes clear. When I read that statement, it's foggy. I don't agree that I am fine with being recalled. I just want the language to be right. I go door to door. I'm gonna be fine. I just care that it's right.
What I would tell you to that, our job is to focus on the language, and do the best.
Sir, how long have you been treasurer?
Since November 5th, 2024.
Okay. All right, thank you, sir. All right, does anybody wish to address the commission? Before? Okay. Yeah, all right, we're taking a comfort break. We'll be right with you.
obvious when they discussed this behind closed doors because she knew what the other one was gonna say already. And she's the one that pretty much told her what to start, get started. It is what it is. And I know Weston's an absolute liberal. He probably already hates you.
Okay, let's start with one. State your name and address, please, for the record.
Charles Campbell, 525 South Huron, Glenwood, Michigan, 48624-9504. We received a letter in reference to this today, and I can let you folks see it. And it kind of goes along the same road. Person was writing as a resident of our township to address the comment that was made by Brad Eddy in the board meeting. Your remark toward a fellow board member were inappropriate, disrespectful, and entirely unacceptable for someone serving as a public leadership role. There is no situation or disappointment that justifies that level of conduct as an elected official. You are held to a higher standard, and what was displayed at that meeting fell well below of what this community should expect from its leadership. I'm deeply disappointed and frankly appalled by what I witnessed. I expect a public acknowledgement and apology that is as direct and visible as the comments themselves. Anything less would fail to take appropriate, fails to take appropriate accountability. Our township deserves leadership that models professionalism, respect, accountability, and I expect to see that standard upheld moving forward. Alexa Halpern. And we received that. And the thing is, Your Honor, when you made a comment,
Let me, hold on, who's the we? You keep saying we received it. The township board received it?
this came in an email to all of the elected officials in our township and Mr. Eddy.
Gotcha, all right.
And I second what she stated. She just put it much better than I would have. Because here's the thing. Countless times while the comment was being made, you took this away from me as supervisor. So was it being spoken as individual or as elected official? Your question as to the hat, no matter what, I'm still Reverend Campbell and I shouldn't walk around swearing, and behaving inappropriately, and it's the same way for elected officials. And when we say that, okay, as an elected official, accountability, I change my hat, that's why we have to be careful what we do say. As an elected official, so you're going out tonight as Joe Schmo, and you decide to go to a pub and get pulled up for DUI, as we all know, that elected official will be held accountable and be removed from office for that exact purpose. Now, was he out drinking as Joe Schmo, or was he out drinking as the elected official? According to state law, your conduct, you're held accountable for it. So, and yeah, the comment of a sexual connotation in a public meeting, there's no room for that.
So, Pastor, let me ask you a question. When you speak at the public comment, are you speaking as a private citizen or are you speaking as a trustee?
It depends on the specific meeting, and no matter what, I will always be the trustee and Reverend Campbell, as we all know. Because some people see me, and as you respectfully say, Reverend Campbell or Pastor Campbell, okay, and I would not be a good witness nor anything to just randomly rant off. That's the thing. So when I spoke in the context of that, I'm still a trustee. You can't remove that.
Okay, all right. Any questions for Pastor Campbell? Okay, thank you. Any further comments? Anyone else? Yes, Supervisor, come on.
The comments that everybody is referencing, testicles. Did I say testicles? Did I say nuts? Did I say stress balls? What? Where did I say all of this? Where did I make that statement? Where did I make a sexual derogatory statement? I do not believe that was my intention. And for that clarity to not be there, if that's approved, that I made it in reference to that, I hope somebody can darn near prove that that is my total intention of that. Because that was, there's many different things that could have been said, but for clarity and hearing, I think if you read my transcript, I do not say what the person stated as far as testicles, like she had stated. That's, if I wanted to say that, I would have said, this is completely nuts. Okay? This is crazy. I mean, there's other words. To be able to take one word and turn it into something is, to me, it's not right.
Thank you, Senator. Anyone else? Comments, Ms. Zanati? Huh?
No.
Okay, any comments? Councilman
I would just say, you know, the intent of this commission is not to be a fact-finding body. I appreciate that everybody has presented things. Our job is to look at the language of the language of the home, and that's what we'll decide on.
All right. Ms. Zanati, vote?
Yes.
I always,
As do I. So that will be 3 yeses because of the factual, because of the clarity and of the nature of the recall. All right, so that's 3 yeses. Now the recall petition will go forward. Sir, you have 10 days from today's date to appeal this to the circuit court in Dayton. All right, thank you, everybody. We'll be